White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney says President Trump's budget will include aggressive spending reforms. He says the plan is to cut deficits by $3 trillion over the next decade. For more, here's Bloomberg News editor Jodi Schneider. Jodi, what else did we learn from Mulvaney's statement previewing parts of this budget?
Well, the budget really looks at, there's a two-year spending plan, two-year budget plan that Congress essentially passed to avert that government shutdown at the end of last week. So we know generally the outlines in any case. But Mr. Mulvaney is referring to a lot of criticism that has come, including from Republicans, that this budget plan, along with the tax cuts that were passed at the end of last year, would raise interest rates because of the large deficits that they will be engendering. And so he's saying that, well, when this money works its way through the economy, then that will help the deficits in the long run. But there's been quite a bit of criticism, and again, from some conservative Republicans, that there's a lot of spending here and that it's going to affect the overall budget picture going forward and the U.S. interest rate picture.
It might blow the budget. It may not. He's saying here, Jodi, that some of these economic moves are not a sugar high. What does he mean by that?
That this is not just spending for spending's sake.
Okay.
That in the long run, you will see effects. This is his argument. Democrats don't agree. That you will see economic effects that will work their way through the economy.
Now, what do I watch moving ahead? I mean, we're getting some drips and drabs, of course, of some of these details. I think last I checked, let me just get that up and see if we do have it. So we know how much they might be setting aside here for the southern border wall. Border wall, $18 billion. What else do we know so far?
Yeah, a couple of President Trump's priorities are obviously outlined here. The border, he's saying he will go along with some changes to immigration policy, but only if there's tougher border security. So that's outlined there. Some funding to combat the opioid crisis in the U.S. Also, infrastructure. They've made a big point of saying there's going to be an infrastructure plan. This is something that President Trump campaigned on. But interesting, there's not a whole lot of money in that budget plan for infrastructure. There's only $200 billion over 10 years when the president's talking about $1.5 trillion he wants to spend. What he's hoping is that this $200 billion will be seed money that will then cause state and local governments as well as private companies to go in there and invest. That's a kind of wait-and-see approach.
So, Jodi, fair to say that despite this big infrastructure spending plan, there will be disappointment?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, the president's plan is always, for the budget, it's always just a proposal. It's a wish list, if you will, almost like a State of the Union, laying some things out, and then Congress gets to do what they want. But Democrats are obviously going to be not happy with a lot of this plan because it doesn't do a whole lot in areas they would like to see. And again, that infrastructure spending is not, it's only a drop in the bucket for what they really want to see, and it doesn't lay out a lot of details there. That is going to be somewhat of a disappointment to some congressmen throughout the country.
Does this change the prospects of the U.S. economy going forward, then?
Well, the deficit question is really a big question, and this is something that is really been part of the Republican playbook to try to push down those deficits and to try to watch spending. This is something that conservative Republicans really fought for over the past several years. So that's a change. This is an awful lot of spending between that huge tax cut, depending on how you calculate it, $1.5 trillion in tax cuts, and now another $300 billion in a two-year budget plan.